This episode of the Smart Aviator podcast is brought to you by Avenco Insurance Company. Real people, real answers. Call 800-822-9123 for a quote.
Welcome to another episode of the Smart Aviator podcast, hosted by avbrief.com. We're here with Calvin Freites. He's with Flight One Aviation Technologies, and today we're talking about flight sims, and in particular, talking about advanced avionics training. And Calvin, you know, when I was at the shop, the big dilemma was sourcing good avionics training, particularly in the retrofit market. But back then, it was a problem for OEM cockpits, too. The Garmin G1000 had come out, and pilots seemed to be losing their mind about how they're going to get training on this system. And, you know, there were some training sources, some training programs, some better than others. But I don't know. I think to this day, there's still a real need for good, high-quality sim training when it comes to learning a glass cockpit. You specialize in advanced avionics simulators for Cirrus SR models and also Piper Archer airplanes with Garmin G1000 platform. Before we talk about the hardware and software, talk about what you saw in the industry, what was lacking, and what the market was looking for when it comes to advanced avionics training.
So I just this week had a conversation with one of our CFIs, and he used to work for Gulf Coast Avionics, and they're one of the top guys in retrofitting aircraft. And he said the biggest challenge that he had was not really test flying the airplane, because he knew how to operate the G5s and the G3X and G3000s, but it was the owner-operator that suddenly he's in a new world. You know, he's been flying this airplane for 20, 30 years, but suddenly that instrument panel didn't look like anything that it used to, and then you put these customers in a position where you can't do partial panel in the airplane. You can't fail. You might be able to pull some breakers and such, but when it comes to using avionics, the cockpit, I've always said, is a horrible classroom. You need to have the ability to pause and review your steps, be able to backtrack what you failed and what you didn't, and you really can't do that in the airplane. I think what's happening with all these avionics manufacturers, I think they're doing it backwards. They're preparing it for the airplane, but some students won't have access to that because either the software is not available or it's just really financially unattainable. I've always explained to customers, there's three tiers of glass cockpits. And on the high, expensive, very exact, you can buy the real avionics and integrate it into the sim. Not many schools or even CPCs have the fortune to be able to have that cash to be able to throw in a simulator like that. Then you have the other end of the spectrum, and that one is when you reverse engineer software. I don't really subscribe to that one because it's taken Garmin 30 years to get here. No simulator manufacturer will be able to do what Garmin did in 30 years. It's impossible. Or you can have the happy medium, and that's what we do with the Piper NXI and with the Cirrus with Perspective Plus. We use Garmin software without the cost of the real glass. So what you're looking at is a Windows screen on the MFD and the PFD, but it's using the Garmin proprietary software in the background, and we stimulate to that, and it works one-to-one. So now we're kind of at a crossroads where the Cirrus G7 has been released and the G7 Plus, and we're in discussions with Garmin to be able to have an upgrade path, to be able to have a new simulator with the G7, because that's even more complex than the Perspective. It's easier on the flow perspective once you get the hang of it, but how do you get the hang of it if you don't have the airplane and if there's no sims behind it? There's other sims on the market that they look like the G7, but they're a little bit on the empty side of things. Is that Once you start to develop a flow in the airplane, those features might not be available for you in the sim world.
Yeah. So let's talk about the software as a whole. And one of the things that you folks do is complete avionics interface, right? In a previous discussion, you and I had some sim companies, they sort of get there, but they're not 100%.
Right.
Just about or everything that you can do in the real airplane, you could do in your sim?
Correct. So, I don't mean to disparage any competitor, because you can develop a healthy habit even with something as simple as a joystick and a monitor. Like that, you can grab a checklist and regurgitate this over and over. However, where the reason why it falls short is because what I find is the guy knows how to fly the airplane. The guy doesn't know necessarily how to get into the avionics to be able to poise that avionics to do the task that he wants to. And it might take him 10 steps in the airplane that if you in the simulator, if your version is a watered down and you can only do 4 out of the 10 steps, he might miss that in the airplane. And that might cause a problem, down the road. So with ours, those 10 steps that are available in the airplane, they will be available on the sim side of things.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Cirrus interface. Let me back up. These are AATDs, right?
Correct.
That's worth an explanation.
Correct. So the industry started with a PC-ATD back in the late 90s, and then they emerged into basic ATD, and now they're up to advanced ATD. Anything after that, you're going to find in the FTD world. By the FTD, then things become really expensive because you need now projection, you need circuit breakers, you need control loading, and so what we're trying to aim for is a certain price range, where like that's affordable for smaller flight schools, the CPCs, making it affordable for everyone to have this unit. I mean, we could theoretically speaking get a cockpit and wrap it around in visuals, but at the end of the day, then your target market is going to be very small, and that's not necessarily, I think, the way that Jim wants to poise the product. He wants to be able to have it available for everyone. Then the other part about it is all these simulators are always laughing. Any install is always in the back corner in the smallest room. These two sims, they just roll out through a single door. You get it out of the crate, it's on wheels, you just wheel it in, plug it in, very minimal installation, and you're up and running.
Yeah, and another thing you had said that I sort of remembered is that, motion isn't always as useful as a lot of people think it might be, right?
Right. So I was talking to him about that the other day, and I said, maybe there is room for expanding the AATD, or at least having the conversation with the FAA about this, to expand to a new build of an AATD. Something where you say you add motion and you add control loading and you get these many more credits. A lot of the operators see the motion conversation as what do I get in the student's logbook for the additional $50,000? And we got to look at them with a straight face and say nothing. So more visuals add nothing other than the immersion factor. Motion adds nothing other than the thing moving around. Sometimes control loading. I like the control loading factor from the perspective of the yoke doesn't, the airplane never feels the same way at takeoff as it does at cruise, but it doesn't add anything as well other than maintenance and expense. So we try to keep it as what is the important task for the job. We get people that ask us, hey, why do you only have 1 visuals? And a lot of other people have 3, 5 visuals. And we go back to the beginning because the FAA made a rule that before you're going to log time with this, it needs to be in an IMC situation. That's the whole point of this. It's an IMC trainer. So I can have 10 monitors and it wouldn't make a difference because you're supposed to be in IMC. So what we're giving you is our focus to make the simulator function the way it should. It's all based on the glass because that's what you're there to learn. Most of these people, they know how to fly the airplane. They know how to do. They know how the airplane feels, and again, we go back to the beginning. And an AATD, it's not a one-to-one. This is not a level D simulators where they're using transport delay protocols to make sure the control loader works the same as the visual timing as the aircraft movement. They don't have that, so you're not going to get a one-to-one. As a matter of fact, the conversation's always the same. Simulators tend to be inherently more sensitive than the airplane, and there's a bunch of factors that play into the aerodynamics and how this thing runs. So we focus on making those avionics, the precise avionics need that you don't pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, this doesn't work. And I've got several calls where people are doing one-to-one comparisons, and they go, hey, we bought this from your competitor, but we called a flight school and yours does this, but ours doesn't. Why? And then we have to explain, well, we're using the actual software that you find in the airplane. And then they start to scratch their heads, and that's where the customer education comes into play. I always say to people, before you buy a simulator, go fly it, but fly it with the mindset of, now I own this. What are going to be the limitations? Can I live with the limitations? Are they good enough to be able to say, oh, I just want to do these 10 tasks, or are they showstoppers? Because I've heard some bad showstoppers that sometimes I question. I go, wait a second, why does it have that stamp if you can't do these things? Like for example, the FAA deemed the Cirrus really at the beginning to have VNAV. It was part of a requirement. VNAV was extremely important. Well, we've had operators that they say, well, this VNAV's not working like it should, but if you go to ours, it does what it's supposed to.
Let's look at a typical simulator session in a late model Cirrus with your simulator. What's the main focus? Is it operating the autopilot? Is it programming approaches? Is it dealing with engine monitoring? Or is it all the above? I think it's all the above, but what do you see?
Most operators is they begin the session, and it's normally like the guy has already is working on an instrument rating, so he's learning how to put this aircraft in a mode where it's to do the approaches. The part I think that a lot of these operators hammer down on is the emergency procedures, because we have connections to the glass where we can give you and when I say partial panel, I don't mean black out the PFD and go into revisionary mode. We can fail specific parts of the G1000 that allows you to see what would it be if this fails. You can't do that in the airplane most times, and so if you're IMC partial panel with some rough running engine, how can I duplicate that? Well, you can't. You need to do this in the simulator. So most people, they're either the private owners are maintaining currency. You get always a conversation of, I've never been to this airport. I'm going to go fly it in the sim first so I can get my bearings. So before I get there, I know how to treat this. Because let's be honest, that Cirrus, while it's a beautiful airplane, it's a Porsche of the sky. I mean, it's a fast airplane. It's a complex airplane. And I think Cirrus placed in the G3000 to be able to have the same path of training to be able to go to the Vision Jet was I think a pretty neat response. I mean, you look at the thing, it looks like a futuristic aircraft. But it's there's room for training in that. I mean, you've got like 4 screens to manage. To see what goes where, and some of the stuff is touchscreen, and I even get people today with the GTN where they're like, oh, the airplane's moving, how do I touch this without affecting other things? And Garmin's got that little bezel, so it's using the same concept in a quiet classroom gives you a different perspective to prepare you, so when you get to the airplane you know how to get to that, and it's like playing music.
Yeah, so if you look at the hardware for the Cirrus, what is it that you get with a Flight 1 setup aside from the complete software package? What is the hardware like? Are there control yokes? Is it throttle? What do you get?
It's like if you went to the aircraft and cut the entire instrument panel, yoke, throttle quadrant, center console, MFD, PFD, all the controls, literally. The only thing that's not really there is the co-pilot seat, and it's not there to be able to keep the footprint of the machine down. The sim itself You need nothing. You just need a place to 110 volts with a regular home plug and a drill to open the crate. It wheels right into the room, and you mount the visual monitor, because we don't send those with a monitor mounted, because it's too wide for the shipping, and it goes right through a door. But it's a replica of the G6 aircraft.
Cirrus G6.
People, they ask me, they go, well, I just bought a G4 or G3, and I'm doing a G3X retrofit where they're getting rid of the Avionics stuff. And I'll say that the G6 Sim does the same wonder. Now, mind you, the other stuff is touchscreen. The problem is there's no simulators for G3X at this point. So that's a problem. However, the mindset of the same MFD, PFD value is literally the same. It's the same thing, which I think was really smart on Garmin. They took that same thing that you method of using things that you learn in the 430 and the 530, the Pages system, and they still bring that today to the G3000. Yeah.
Why the Piper Archer? Just because it's a common training airplane?
Yeah, it's a common training airplane, and there was a bit of a story. Jim had an Archer for many years.
And when we talk about Jim, we're talking about Jim Rhodes. He's one of the company founder.
Yeah, correct. And he had a Piper Archer that won awards at Oshkosh. Beautiful air. So him in this Archer world are very. It's almost a personal venture for him.
Okay.
So he made that Archer. Again, it looked like you went to Piper and you cut it out. And as a matter of fact, Piper came over to demo the Archer at our demo room in Kissimmee, and they could not believe this thing looks almost an FTD. All you were missing was some circuit breakers, a cockpit shell, and more visuals, and you've got yourself an FTD. I mean, it's a really, really well placed product. My inspiration to the Archer, the next simulator that I try to plant my seed is the Seminole. I'd like to see us to have the single and the twin. One of the most popular trainers out there. The thing's been going around since the 80s, and I said to Jim, you've got already all the layout, the colors, the switches, because everything's exact. And all we need is and he always picks on me. He goes, yeah, that phrase, all you need is a loaded one.
Yeah. So what's your focus moving forward now that obviously we're in the G7 Plus Cirrus singles? Is that your focus right now?
Yeah. So at this point, we've got some development done on the G7 yokes and yoke handles and displays and instrument panels. So we're at the point where pretty soon we're going to need software to power this stuff up.
Yeah.
And we've gotten requests from pretty much all of our customers that because everyone's put in an order for a G7. Even the CPCs are like, we need a trainer. We need, yes, we have your G6 here, but we need a trainer for a G7. So that's become the hot topic around the office.
Yeah. So how many of your simulators are out there in the field? Approximately.
For the G6, I believe they're around 80 units out there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all sorts of operators. It's a private, it's a flight schools. We even have a really great customer, Karen Seaton, in Denver, in Centennial Airport. She's got this concierge service where you come to the hangar and there's a sim and she pairs you up with an instructor. Now, she's not a flight school, but she pairs you up with the instructor, and they use, I'm not sure if you've heard of a product called Pilot Edge, which is a virtual ATC, and they've got lessons, and they pair up with Keith at Pilot Edge, and it's a really good community. As a matter of fact, she does these safety seminars there where half of the airport shows up. She feeds everyone, and all in the name of keeping GA safe.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So what's the price point of a current simulator for Cirrus?
Initially, when we started, it was around 65, and I believe that we dropped the price because we could see the G7 upcoming. I believe is around 60.
Okay. No.
My,
Any
rule
any
of thumb
advice
is-
for those searching the simulator market for realistic avionics training?
Right. My rule of thumb is I know it sounds a pain to go do a little bit of research, or sometimes you don't even have to go to the manufacturer's facility. Sometimes you could just call them up and tell you, hey, I'm looking for someone in my area. Let me go test and feel. But you've got to go to try the simulator with the mindset of, I own it. Is it checking all my boxes? Because again, and I'm not trying to say that don't check the boxes, because you can learn a lot with a mouse and a keyboard. But when you're putting something as complex as a G6, G7, any simulator, avionics should be at the top of the list of requirements to be able to be exact. And I get it. Some people, it's, their first line is budget, but the whole point of this is to be able to learn how to use the avionics properly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking with us today, Calvin. Been talking to Calvin Freites at Flight One Aviation Technology. You've been watching the Smart Aviator podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Calvin.
Right.
We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
See ya.